Hello and welcome to Zip Tie. Today we are getting the Porsche to powder coat, meaning every little thing on the car that I have been putting off is now a problem. There is no going back after I get it coated, so let's not forget anything and let's get into it.
This car is relatively complete, and without much trouble it can be running again, which means it's time to tear it completely apart, and there are 1,000 things to do before powder coat. All big chassis projects are complete, so now it's just time for things that I've put off. Starting from the bottom, where the water bulkheads are less than good or complete. So it's getting some struts for stability, and then getting sealed in. The 20 AN bulkheads are a pain to tighten, so I'm adding tabs around the hex of the fitting, so all I need to do is have one wrench and one person to reinstall them. The bulkheads are a start, but figuring out how to seal the body to the chassis is a much bigger task, most of which won't be done till after the car comes back from powder coat. What comes now is 1,000 tabs and a semblance of a plan. I'm going to seal the door bars, main hoop, and dash with aluminum and carbon sheets, all mounted with tabs. A lot of them. Last episode, when I cut half the car off, I also lost all the wing support, and it shows. A couple 3/4 chromoly tubes will get the job done. With only 2 small tacks on one side, it's already a ton better. I also cut off the coolant reservoir for the motor, so it's getting welded back but to the removable strut bar. This is going to be hard to understand till I actually finish it, but in the future this car is getting a driver adjustable sway bar, and it needs a way of controlling it, which is where this sweet metal handle comes in. It's smaller than I anticipated, but it's not just the size of the boat, I suppose. The handle controls a cable which will in turn rotate the sway bar arm. For now, all I need to do is mount the handle and a place for the cable to bolt into. I mostly never considered making wheel wells, and rather just kicked the can down the road, and I made it a problem for future Elliot. And future Elliot is not happy. The current idea is to make them out of fiberglass, so I'm utilizing painter's tape to visualize what needs to be done and welding tabs to suit. The rear tow hook is something I had a solid plan for about 2 months ago, but now I have had to change plans, but I came up with a simple and easy solution. Same thing can be said for the intercooler, but with the help of some rubber mounts, I turned it 90 degrees and dropped it down for a lower center of gravity. With the OSHA violation of setting on the body out of the way, it's time to save my shins from the pin jacks. I didn't know where the body would land when I built them, but I sure did make them a little long. With an initial cut made, I set the quarter panel on and marked out a hole for the pin jack tube. When hole sawing fiberglass, I like to take 2 light cuts on both sides, that way it doesn't tear its way through. With a final mark, the tube can now get chopped to size. Thankfully, the front is as easy as getting a sawzall out to cut her down. So I might be almost done with the car, but I might as well redo things that are working just fine. This time it's the windshield supports. My original design sucked because to install the Lexan windshield, I'd have to get very creative. So this time I'm going straight to the A-pillar. With the A-pillars firmly in place, it's roof install time. And yes, it's still going to be convertible. The roof is getting installed with Zeus's, which are quarter turn fasteners, meaning I can take the roof easily on and off with a flathead screwdriver. Sometimes the Zeus tabs come coated in zinc, which can't be welded safely or easily. So I use muriatic acid to dissolve the coating, and after rinsing it off, it's ready to go. This trick works for all sorts of coated bolts and such, just don't use it on anything aluminum. Last thing windshield on the list is to make posts for the center supports. Lexan isn't as stiff as glass, so it might be necessary to support it in the middle. Some 3/8 049 chromoly is good enough for well over 200 miles an hour. I set up the laser to make sure the posts will end up perfectly straight top to bottom once they're welded on. The tubes here are temporary mock-ups, but you get the idea of what it's going to end up looking like. When mocking them up, I made sure to leave enough room for the thickness of the windshield. I would have made the real deal, but I did run out of tube, so good for now. The rear half of the body isn't really mounted by much, so instead of letting it shake violently, some mounts will do just fine. Now that the body doesn't move when the wind blows, I can confidently mount my new, to me, fancy spoiler deck lid. And that needed a little bit of clearancing. Arrow catches are the most race car solution to keep the deck lid on and easily removable. They install like any hood pin, but they get a big hole for the latch to sit flush, keeping it out of the air. You also never can lose your hood pins because they are your hood.
Everything's gonna be alright.
The kit comes with aluminum pins designed to be installed into body sheet metal, of which I have none. So I made a threaded metal slug to help give it a place to weld. The front latch sits right over a tube, so cutting a hole is the best, yet riskiest solution. The rears are considerably easier to get at, except I have to have the deck lid on to do it. This is one of those jobs I genuinely impressed myself because I somehow managed to do it and line it up with good gaps everywhere, except for where the spoiler starts, but I think that's because that's how the deck lid is. For no particular reason, the taillights were also a thing I put off. Thankfully, I could reuse the stock mounts on the outside, but the inside needs a solution to keep it away from the wing uprights. With the taillights in place, I figured I might as well cut even more of the original Porsche out. It's a simple progression of events. Honestly, this metal was so ugly, everyone died, the end. It sure didn't get me to powder coat any faster, but it did make me feel better, and that's worth something. At this point, now we're just down to sealing up odds and ends like the dash, the roof, and the door gaps, and using every tab and every bracket I have sitting around the garage. Every bit of sealing this body takes so much thinking and ingenuity that this takes so long to do, but hopefully it turns out good. that was the last time I get to see this car relatively complete for a good long while, and boy does this thing have the potential to be something wicked.
All right, so I think I have just about every single thing done with small exceptions. Everything now needs to come off. That means I have the most stuff to possibly take off. So I'm gonna try to do it all in one time lapse in one night. So, time lapse. Whole car is stripped. The only thing left on the car now is the rear subframe and suspension, and the rear diffuser is getting mounted up. But beyond that, there's also a ton and tons and tons of welding. Just things that I like tacked on there or didn't complete because it's gonna be easier when stuff was taken off. So now I get to pay the price.
But before I do, the final thing that needs to be mounted on this car is the diffuser. To mount the front, I'm going to use a piece like this running the width of the diffuser to hold the panel up and prevent air from getting under the panels. Now once it came to actually putting it up in place, it proved to be rather difficult. In fact, I think I'm going to cut this thing in half, hamburger ways, not hot dog ways, and make it simpler to actually get up. The rear of the diffuser will get rods to hold it up in the back, but I don't have those yet, so imagine they're there, and we'll move along to literally welding everything on the car, and boy is there a lot of everything on the car.
Okay, it is 3:21 a.m. I have now completed welding the car. That took many more days than I thought it would take. I decided I'm finishing it all tonight. It's going to the powder coater tomorrow at 8 a.m. And, well, I guess today at 8 a.m. And where's that going? Well, it's going to nah. I'd say looks good from my house. I am very tired. I'm going to sleep for a couple hours, load this into the trailer, and then bring it in to get lovely painted black. It's like just doable enough. Yeah, you could please lift it off me in the front. Yeah, I got you.
After blowing my tailbone in half loading the car, the only thing left is to put bolts in all the threaded holes I don't want powder in, and it's off to get coated.